As Africans celebrate 50 years of emancipation, it has now become evident that most Africans are not satisfied with the slow pace at which the African Union is approaching its way of unionization. At the just ended African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana called on African leaders to speed up the process of removing fiscal barriers which prevents movement of goods and services within the continent. He said for so long, Africans' heads have paid lip services to the need for a continental unity and in the process maintain their erected borders that make African foreigners and strangers in their own land. But the question we ask is, where the African continent will begin with calls for unity. At the moment, Chad and Mali are in crisis. Ivory Coast, Liberia, Sierra Leone are struggling to reform after long-standing conflicts. Ghana and Kenya have just gone past an electoral process whose outcome is being challenged at the law courts, and countries in the Maghreb zone are also dealing with their own political emancipation. Dr. Abusakara Foster, the presidential candidate of the Convention People's Party in the just ended election in Ghana, has his own understanding of how Africans can unite.
We have made progress, but in terms of the accomplishment of that vision, the vision of a united, integrated Africa, taking its rightful place amongst the Committee of Nations as equals, we cannot say that we have got anywhere near to achieving that task. But we have made progress in the first stage because at the advent of independence, he himself said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked to the total liberation of Africa. Much of Africa, if not all, is now liberated. But he also pointed us to a second vision, the economic emancipation of Africa. And today, the statement that we must make is that the independence of African countries is useless unless they forge the unity that brings about economic emancipation to all Africans. This is the bigger challenge, and in meeting this challenge, we must confront not the shackles of colonialism, but the shackles of ourselves as Africans. Well, true emancipation economically does not happen in a day. It will also require many things to be in place, but above all, it requires us, the human resources of Africa, to be prepared for that challenge. So we must deal with the issues of self-doubt that create instability. We must deal with the issues of self-interest that prevent us from pursuing the common good and the national interest as supreme above all else.
On his part, Bernard Mona of the People's National Convention said Africans have a lot to do in terms of uniting. He said the call for break in barriers is laudable, but other factors must also be considered.
Once we say this is Africa, it means we have a continental currency. We will not have to convert Ghana cedi into dollar, into euro, into pound in order to go to South Africa to go and change into rand. You will not have to convert your Ghana cedi into dollar, euro, pound or yen in order to go to Kenya to go and spend Kenyan shillings. What we need is a continental currency and not to continue to remain slaves to any foreign currency. So yes, it is good to have a borderless Africa, but it is even more important that we should have the continental government now. We have toiled, we have suffered, people have died in order to get us political independence so that we'll be able to put ourselves together for the betterment of our people. 50 years down the line, we are still celebrating chiefdoms that we pride ourselves as countries. And we want to have borderless countries instead of having the ultimate goal of political unification so that we can move forward.